guys, how's it going? It's Al. We have a brand new game. Finally, after what, 13 months after minting, we've gone through alpha game, we've gone through cave game, we've spelunked and gotten the gems, and now finally we have the Woolpaper in our hands. I'm gonna go through it section by section. We're gonna break down everything that there is to know, that you need to know about how to play Wolfgame, the #1 hottest NFT project right now in the entire Web3, Web 2.5, Web 2 space at this point. We're going to go through what you do with your sheep, what you do with your wolves, what you have to do with the barns, the peak, the mountain where the wolves live, how they steal things, how we build things, how you get resources and steal and deal with energy. All of it. We're going to give you the best breakdown that we can as succinctly as I can, because this Woolpaper is extremely thick. So I'm going to have to go through it step by step and try and take you through it as best I can to give you the best understanding that you can get. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and let's go.
He's a legend.
We're going to start all the way at the top. Now I'm going to go section by section in this. I will try to break down chapters for you guys later so that you can just skip around to what you need. But I'm going to go right through the Woolpaper. They do have the introduction. This came out a few days ago. We're going to break this down and just take a look at it. They do have a TLDR. We'll keep it short. The initial version of Wolfgame is here. The game and economy are living, breathing ecosystems. All this is just very basic 30,000, plain type stuff. We're taking an overarching view. The game is simple to play, brimming with choices. Definitely love the game theory in the game. The 20,000 Genesis lands are open for play. As I'm recording this video, as I'm recording this video, they are not yet open. The full game has not yet opened, but it will very soon. Each land is a part of the 101 communities. That includes Community 0 and the 100 communities in the Verdant Valley, which is what they call that, and then the peak is what they're calling Community 0. Stealing is back. Yes, it is. Entirely novel mechanics. Definitely. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Wolves can now actively attempt to steal Gen 2 sheep who are being bred in barns. Sheep can aim to thwart their efforts. Yes, they can. I think that it's extremely balanced based on my overview. I've read through this like 5 different times. I've got all my note cards. I'm ready to go. 5 new in-game off-chain resources are introduced: chops, grass, stone, water, and wood. Wool remains the sole utility and government's token of Wolfgame. Right now, as I'm recording this, I love doing this because later, as people watch these videos, later on, it always, you look back at the alpha game one that I did, the day one video that I did, and looking at the prices that the assets were, you're like, oh man, why didn't I buy more? Right now, wool is 4.5 cents. It's the #1 trending thing on Dex tools. You have to swap to get it. You swap Ethereum to get your wool. That's essentially if you wanted to get more of that. And so you're going to have to go get chops, which is going to help you breed, grass, stone, water, and wood, which are the resources you're going to use to build things, and you're going to send your sheep out to go gather those, and the wolves can steal them. The game uses a hybrid Web 3, Web 2 architecture, hence Web 2.5. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I do think that this is important. Low time requirement, high thought requirement. So last iteration of a playable game that they had was Cave Game. I did a video on it where you saw me running my wolves and sheep through a cave, trying to find gems to upgrade farmers. We could find wool or anything else. It was a lot of fun to play, but it did take time because you did have to move your pieces around the cave, and every 24 hours your energy got replenished. That's not going to be the case in this game. It is going to take you time to make your moves, and the more animals you have, the more moves you're going to have to make. So getting to that point is going to take you however long as you have animals. There are more passive play pieces of the game. The land would be more passive. Wool pouches are extremely passive. Taking a look at what I have in my profile, just so you guys can see, well, is he just talking about the game or is he investing in the game? This is all my assets. I got all these farmers. I got some of the bigs, Big Mama, Big Daddy, another Big Daddy. This guy's, he's a baddie. He's a baddie daddy. A whole bunch of structured lands. I have myself a Community 0 land up on the peak. I have all of these little sheepos. Here are my wool pouches, and this is my cadre of wolves. This guy's right behind me over here. So I have a lot of pieces that I'm going to have to move, and I may have to change what I do or change my allocations and move pieces around in terms of the marketplace. And if you look at the marketplace right now, it is flying. Wolfgame with 1, 2, 3, 4 projects right now. 4 of the main pieces that you just saw. Big time volume, floor price of 0.04, but that's the wool pouch is kind of weird. The animals are in here, 0.94 floor for the sheep there. Genesis lands 0.5, 0.49 essentially, and farmers 0.93. So the game has really taken off. That covers all the asset pieces and prices. We will be creating more videos on this channel to go over all of those different things and focus more in. This is going to be an overarching view video as opposed to taking a more in-depth view. If you wanted to talk more in depth whenever you wanted, make sure that you join our Discord at smizzle.tv/discord. And we have a token lock portion of it behind the Smizgang key on OpenSea. Go to smizzle.tv/HQ. Please use my links if you wanted to purchase a Smizgang key to get into the token lock part of our Discord, where we talk about Wolfgame and every other NFT project behind that key, because there are false ones up on OpenSea. So do not search for it on OpenSea. Go to smizzle.tv/HQ. They are 0.1 Ethereum, and 33% of the money that we raise from this goes directly to charity. Getting to part 2 of the, I'm not going to go through all these different things, right? This is just like, I read you the TLDR. We're not going to go through part 1. Part 2, game mechanics. This is what y'all are here for, and this is what you want to know. And this is it's not confusing, I wouldn't say, but it is very in-depth. And I feel like Charlie from, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where the conspiracy gif where he's going over everything and this connects to this, which does this and does all the things. Like, this is kind of how I felt on my first read through this. So game is played on 101 communities made up of the 20,000 Genesis lands. Community 0 is the peak where wolves breed and recharge. So if you run out of energy with your wolf, you have to retreat to the mountaintop with the snow to be able to get yourself back to full energy. It does not recharge the way that it recharged during cave game. Communities 1 through 100 are the farm, the verdant valley. Majority of the gameplay takes place there. So this is where you're going to spend most of your time. Each farm community has a unique set of characteristics. Resource composition. Communities have 4 types of terrain. You've seen them on the different farm pieces, each of which produce a different resource. Pasture is grass, quarries stone, forests wood, and lakes produce water. Daily production rate of the resources depends on the composition of the land. Yeah. So like how much one has on that land is how much can be farmed, let's say. And then you can level that up, which we'll look into a little bit later as we get to that. Resource levels, as I said, you can level them up to produce more of those different resources, stone, grass, wood, water, by leveling up, by paying to level up your lands, and it will create a multiplier, I believe up to 1.45x of what it says. So if you have like 500, then you could get 225 more per day if you level it all the way up to like level 3. Defense level. Now it says players can fortify their communities, and they make a very specific differentiation that I'm not completely sure of yet because the full game is not out. So like, please don't hold me to this and jump in the reply, you're wrong because you said this and that's the other thing. Like we don't have that. Okay. We don't have the knowledge from actual gameplay at this point. So it says players can fortify their communities. Now, does this mean, I don't know, so I'm going to speculate here. Does this mean that the community, all however many are in that different community, can build these defense layers so that the wolves can't sabotage as easily, or it would cost them more energy to do so? Or does each individual land, right? This land, this land, this land have to build its own defense? Or does each community 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 100 different communities, do that collectively? If somebody in chat knows, please say, I don't know right now off the top of my head from my 5 read-throughs of this. Wolves can damage defense by sabotaging the community. Wolves are out there to basically just completely wreck. That's what wolves are there to do. They're there to steal. They're there to attack. They're there to do stuff. Sabotage, steal, loot. There's weather. On a sunny day, that's best for the sheep. Like, you can read through all this, but like sunny days are best for sheep. Cloudy days are kind of in the middle. Rainy days kind of make things a little bit more advantageous for the wolves and worse for the sheep. They can loot less, and the steal is easier for the wolves in those situations. Tax rate. Now, I said that land and landowners, you get to be basically a landlord. And based on the community, you'll all vote to create a tax rate for all the things in your land, which is really kind of cool because you can earn passively. Now, there's a trick here. You can't just sit there and it drops into your wallet. You're going to have to log in and click. So if you're a completely disengaged member of your community, you're going to lose out. Landowners will continuously vote on a tax rate on all resources collected within their community. The tax rate is equal to the average vote of all landowners in the community. Distribution of earned taxes to landowners proportional to the resource composition of their specific land. See, this is the differentiation. Specific lands, community. That's why I said the defense might be community-based and not specific land-based. On the specific land which the collection took place does not affect tax distribution. So basically, this reads as though every piece of thing, wood, stone, water, whatever, that is farmed within that entire community will get taxed. And the payout of that tax, as they're going to say, is going to go to what you own within the community on your totals of those resources. If you have the most stone, you will receive the most taxes on that stone. As a simple example, pretend this community with a tax rate of 10% made up of just two lands, X and Y. X has equal parts: pasture, quarries, forests, and lakes. Land Y is entirely a forest. Sheep Z, apparently that sheep is related to me, chops 100 wood on land X, on the first one that has equal parts. The owner of land X will receive 2 wood. The owner of land Y will receive 8 because he has a full-on forest. Landowners must claim their taxes at least once every 7 days. So you got to log in once a week. If you're a passive earner, you still got to log in and clear your earnings. It's kind of similar to Tarkov in the sense that if you do play Escape from Tarkov, they have a Bitcoin farm, and it gets up to a certain amount, and if you don't clear it, it stops doing stuff. But this is going to be a little bit different from that because any unclaimed taxes will be burned. They're not just going to sit there and stop earning. You're going to lose it. So you got to log in at least once a week. Just know that if you're a landowner, there will be a little bit of a grace period at the time of launch, time of claim. Landowners may also use a farmer. Farmers are multipliers to boost the amount that they collect. So the farmers are kind of cool. They act as a multiplier and a protector of sheep, which we're going to get to right now. Structures, barns, bathhouses, and dens. Dens are going to be where the wolves breed. Barns are going to be where the sheep breed, and bathhouses both on the peak. I keep wanting to call it the hive, but it's not. The peak and the farm are going to be to recharge energy. To build or upgrade a structure, a landowner must spend the required amount of wool and resources. Yes, we know that. Barns, single pair of sheep. Bathhouses, a single sheep or wolf recharges their energy. Sheep may only utilize bathhouses on the farm. Wolves may only utilize bathhouses on the peak. So if you run out of energy with your wolf, you got to go all the way back to community 0 to the peak to get you there. Higher level bathhouses. This does not mean higher up the mountain because they do have the peak, slope, and then the base. You don't have to get all the way up to peak, but each individual structure you can level up. We'll get to that at the end. Dens. This is basically a barn for wolves. Pair of wolves breed. They can only be built on the peak. Higher level dens reduce breeding time. There is a long wait on breeding. A level 1 gets you let me see, I have it over here. Gets 40 days. Takes 40 days to breed 2 sheep or 2 wolves. A level 3 cuts that down to 27 days. So we're not going to be overrun by rampant breeding and rampant inflation of assets in this game. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to take 2 pieces out of your collection, out of your usage that you could be using to steal if it's a wolf, or to resource farm if you have 2 sheep that you wanted to breed together, or breed with a friend and their sheep to create another one and split the profits on that. You're going to take your pieces off the board for a month plus, especially at the beginning of the game. The game enforces and collects minimum raw wool fee for the use of each structure, and landowners must also determine and set their own wool. So like if you have a structure and you build a barn, or you build a bathhouse or a den, you get to say how much it costs for your little shag shack for your wolves or for your sheep. So that's how you will passively make your money. Energy and movement. Each sheep and wolf must use energy to take actions in the game, move across county lines, and sheep and wolves maximum energy. Gen 0 have the most energy. Gen 1 has less. Gen 2, which is going to be the bred sheep in the game, have even less than that. Their current energy represents their current energy level. At the start of the game, everybody starts with half. So like you're going to have to move your pieces. It's going to incentivize people to be very efficient with their movement, and then have to go to a bathhouse. So the people who do have structures immediately from jump, like immediately, yes, you're going to be in a position to make money if you build bathhouses early. Breeding and stealing sheep. Now this part is very, very important because people are going to want to make more stuff. And as they make more stuff, you can then sell it. But also, if too much inflation happens with these, it's going to undercut the market and make things, just all the assets drop in price. We saw that happen with Zedrun. But I think that they've put a lot of things in place here Where Zedrun is just, okay, I'm going to breed and then it's done. It's instant. This takes your pieces off the board for 40 days at the jump. Gen 1 and Gen 2, Gen 1 and Gen 0 can breed the next generation, Gen 2 wolves, meanwhile can attempt to steal the new generation of sheep. Gen 2 cannot breed at this time. Maybe down the road they will be able to, but not yet. Begin breeding. 2 Gen 0 or 1 sheep must find an open barn on the farm, spend energy, grass, and wool. So those are the 3 things that it costs if you wanted to breed. Essentially right now, I mean, it's going to cost you, like, depending on the wool for the sheep. There's graphs at the bottom that we'll hit once we get there. Sheep breeding has 2 phases. This is the important part. Courting. So you got to take your sheep in there the first 50%. So right now, the first 20 days of the courting phase, which is the 2 sheep get acquainted with each other. If they leave the barn during this phase, they will not breed a Gen 2 sheep. However, they will receive something, chops. So if you get in there and you're just like, look, I need to get these chops. I don't want to breed. I don't want to take my pieces off the board for that long. The chops are necessary and they're going to be very valuable because that's how you breed wolves. With the amount proportion of how long they have been in courting, the butcher also provides chops to wolves who steal during the courting period. While he knows that his offer may increase, nurturing is the other 50% of the time, the second half. And if no wolf comes to steal, or if you have farmer protection, you will get a Gen 2 sheep, which is pretty cool. Farmers can be utilized in either phase of breeding, and the owner of the sheep may apply to as many available farmers. So farmers are strapped to the land, and the farmers do act as a multiplier on taxing. Farmers act as a multiplier in breed speed. They act as protection against steal attempts when in breeding, and just a massive boost on what your lands can accrue in terms of the taxing. So they also can be used to boost resource collection. So very solid addition and multiplier are the farmers. Now on advancement, they can instantly advance the courting or nurturing and they can immediately add to the maximum energy of a Gen 2 sheep. So the longer you spend in the breeding process, as it says up here in nurturing, the nurturing part, you can get higher energy on that first Gen 2 sheep, who they only have like very little in comparison to the Gen 0s specifically. Here's the board to kind of break it down for the farmers, to make it as simple as possible. Here's the TLDR. If you go courting with no protection, no farmer, right? Always use protection. Receive chops from the butcher. That's if you're successful. If you're protected by a farmer, they can't steal, receive nothing. Okay? This is the attacking stuff. If they are protected by a farmer and you attack, then you get the chop. Or if they're protected by a farmer, you get nothing. If they are unprotected, you get chops. So sheep that are breeding, y'all need to use that protection if there is a farmer available to you. But they're not always going to be available. They will be at the beginning. So stealing is going to be extremely difficult on that first round of breeding, at least in my opinion. If you attack and there is no protection during the nurturing phase, you enter the barn, you wait a certain period of time during which higher alpha wolves can kick you from the barn. This is scary for the alpha 5 level and possibly even alpha 6 level wolves. If you get there first and you're an alpha 5, no other alpha 5 can kick you out of the barn. You're in there, you're going to get the steal. But if a 6 comes around and they sabotage and they break in during the nurturing phase, your 5 gets bounced. You've already used your energy on that guy, but the higher alpha wolves are going to eat, right? The alpha wolves always are going to eat better than the wolves that are below them. So a 7 will kick a 6. A 6 will not kick out a previously posted up 6. And there are 14 alpha 8s in the game. If they come around, they will always steal an unprotected sheep during nurturing phase. Lower alpha wolf is inside. You will kick the wolf from the barn, as I just said. Enter the barn, wait a certain period of time. I believe it's 7 days, during which time alpha wolves can kick you from the barn. So if a 5 is in there, a 6 comes along, he boots him out. There's a certain period of time he waits. If he can survive that time and no 7s or 8s come along to kick him out, he gets the steal. Equal or higher wolf, failure to steal, receive nothing. Protected by a farmer, failure to steal, receive nothing. So the sheeps are going to want to use a farmer. So those structured lands are going to have multiple farmers to make sure that they get used. Breeding wolves, no stealing of the breeding wolves. They basically do the same thing. They go to the dens up on the peak and they get there. Same nurturing and courting phases, but the dens cost way more in terms of resources, stone and wood and wool to build than it does to build a barn. Gen 2 traits. It's kind of a dice roll. So as you breed them together, add the 2 points, right? So for the wolves. So if you have, there's no more alpha 8 wolves. There will only ever be 14 of them. They are the kind of grail pieces in the game. they are the ones that will never see any sort of inflation in their numbers. They are going to stay there. But if you have a 7 and you breed it with a 6, 7 plus 6 is 13, divide that by 2, 6.5, you're going to round down. So that's going to, a 7 and a 6 will produce a 6. A 7 and a 7 will produce a Gen 2 7. Each trait is determined independently of the others. For each trait, 33% chance that it's going to match the first parent, 33% chance that the trait will match the second parent. There's a 33% chance it will be random. So if you have 2 zombie sheep, let's say, or 2 zombie wolves, let's say, there is a 66% chance that you're going to get a zombie baby, which is kind of cool because there's some really unique ones out there. There's the red furs that have the devil's tail. I think AJV has one of those. If you have the zombie, if you have the mecha wolf with the armor and you breed 2 of those, you have a 66% chance of coming up with that certain trait. And then obviously you do the math and figure out what level it will be. But those unique kind of traits are going to be very, very cool. So like looking at mine just for use here, I have 2 A7s right here with this guy and this guy. They both have that tongue out smiley mouth. They would produce a Gen 2 A7 who has a 66% chance of being a smiley guy, to kind of simplify that as best I can. Despite all of this, Gen 2 sheep and wolves are guaranteed to be unique, so they won't be a carbon copy. Traits will be re-rolled if duplicates would have been minted. So you will get a one-of-one unique type animal with all the different traits that are out there. Even if you're, rolling with very rare traits, you're not going to get a duplicate. You'll never get a twin. Collecting and looting resources. On the farm, sheep can collect, we know that. They collect all these things. To begin collecting, they must spend a one-time energy cost. While sheep collect, they will continuously spend their energy, the rate at which sheep will consume other sheep, more sheep that collect. So if there's more sheep that collect on the same thing, less resources will be available to them individually. Of course, if you have 100 pieces of wood on a land that can be resourced and 5 sheep are out there, they're not going to all get 100. They're going to split it and get 20. If you have 1 sheep there, he can collect all 100. So there's a balance. You want to go where there is nobody else farming that resource, but you also want to avoid wolves. In addition to the rate of collection, the amount of resources a sheep will claim at the end of collecting is determined by the following factors: community tax rate, we talked about that already; weather, the better the weather, the better the farming; and looting. If a sheep is looted by a wolf, they will receive a fraction of the resources they collected. There's the stealing that comes into play. And there are some looting games which are in this next section that are very interesting, including like a gambit, the sheep's dilemma, which is the prisoner's dilemma, that you're gonna have to make decisions. If collecting sheep is not protected by a farmer, a wolf can loot its resources by spending energy and collecting after cooling down. When a wolf loots a sheep, one of the 2 looting games is played, determined by the weather. So if it's sunny, it's a specific game. If it's rainy or cloudy, it's a game that kind of helps the wolves. Both games are played asynchronously, and the sheep must plan its own choices at the beginning of the collecting process. So like you kind of have to figure it out. And higher alpha wolves have the greater advantage. See, I wasn't that smart. I couldn't read that. Over sheep in looting games. Looting games. Sheep's dilemma. This is the prisoner's dilemma. The sheep and the wolf are each given a simple choice to choose share resources. They can be kind to one another. It's like, look, the wolf's like, hey, give me half of that stuff. And they both go their separate way. Or the wolf can be very greedy and determined to play the game greedily, and then a lot of the stuff gets burned. Each player's winnings depending on their choice and the other player's choice. 3 rounds of the game are played. Wolf's Gambit game. The sheep and wolf each state a number between 1 and 9. Neither player knows what the other stated number is. Their 2 numbers are then added together. If the sum is greater than 10, so it's like blackjack, but instead of 21, it's 10. The sheep receives 0% of the prize. So like sheep are always clicking 1. Right? They're always clicking 1. The wolf receives a minority. The remainder is burned. If the sum is less than or equal to 10, which would be a success, each player receives a percentage of what's at stake in the round equivalent to their contribution to the sum. For example, if a sheep selects 2 and a wolf selects 7, the sheep gets 20%, the wolf gets 70%, and 10 is burned. So like they're playing this gamble game. Unless you know which wolf is up against you, you can say, well, I want 50% of my stuff as a sheep, but if the wolf picks, well, I want 70%, then you just get effed. That's all there is to it. So like sheep are going to choose low numbers, and then it comes up to the wolf being kind enough to not burn all the sheep stuff, but the wolf would get less percentage as well. There's a chart down below. We'll hit those at the end of the video. History, sheep and wolves, results in previously played looting games is available to all. So when you play against somebody, you'll know what their tendencies are because there will be a book that goes there. Delegation. Now, this is a big thing. This is massive. I can loan you my sheep and wolves. Like I said, I may not be able to run all of these around. So I got some friends that want to run my sheep around and go resource hunting for me. And they can go play the game. You own the piece. They play the game. They move your sheeps around. You can coach them up and have them move optimally in whatever way that you want. So we have basically shepherds. Little shepherds, not like the shepherd, but like little shepherds that you can kind of run your sheep or your wolves around the map. Delegate, you add a new wallet address. This is really awesome because as somebody who owns a lot of things, but I don't have like a mountain. I don't have like 100 sheep and wolves, but I have enough that like it's going to be difficult for me on a day-to-day basis to run them all around. So if you have multiples, you don't have to liquidate them. You just got to find some people that want to run your sheep or your wolves around the map and do the things that you decide that they should do. If a player enters a barn using a sheep and one sheep delegated to them, the wallet that owns the sheep, not the delegatee, but the delegator, which is used to initiate the process to receive any chops or offspring. Same applies to dens. So like if they choose to breed the sheep that you've delegated them to move around, they don't get to keep the baby. Very, very Madonna of the Shep here. Resource exchange. If you played Cave Game, you know that there was the shopkeeper. You can exchange your 5 in-game resources, the water, the stone, the wood, whatever else, the chops, for other things. They will each have their own balance that they find because there's different rarities for all of those things. So if you're trying to build a barn, it does take stone and wood. So if you're collecting water, you could then trade that at the shopkeep. This is not a player. This is just a part of the game. The butcher, same thing. Players can visit the butcher to burn their sheep in return for chops. You can just literally murder your sheep. You can murk your own sheep and get chops. The amount of chops received is equivalent to the maximum energy of the sheep. Any generation of sheep can be burned. You can burn your Gen 0s, your Gen 1s, your Gen 2s. You will get more chops for burning a Gen 0, but it will be pricey to you to do just that, because they have more energy than the Gen 1s and way more energy than the Gen 2s. Wool deposit and withdrawal. You can, because there is an in-game wallet for this, which will be separate from your MetaMask, your Coinbase, whatever, you can deposit your on-chain wool into your in-game wallet. The game itself is Web 2. The assets are Web 3. So you will play the game, which allows the team to be pretty flexible with adding and changing things without having to go through blockchain iterations and interactions to do it. It will also speed up the gameplay. You can withdraw your in-game wool to the blockchain with a maximum of 1 transaction every 72 hours. This is for safety and security. So if somebody gets access to your account, which has happened to people with their NFTs, they can't immediately withdraw something. They'll have 3 days to pause. So like if you farm a bunch of stuff, you can't just immediately rip it out and sell it. And while you think that may be something that's bad, if you realize that your account has been compromised, I would assume that you have 3 days to try and get that fixed before the withdrawal process kind of happens. So I personally think that that's a very good thing in terms of safety and security. And if you played the previous games, you immediately will have money, wool in your in-game wallet. That's the in-game currency. The wool cycle. All wool spent in the game and not directly to structure is either burned or added to community rewards. There is a lot of wool that is going to be burned. I believe, what is there, 5 billion wool or whatever there is in there. You're going to have, that's ever going to be produced. Like 5% of all the wool that is spent in the game is going to be just gone. Anything that is not claimed is going to be gone. Massive deflationary tactic to hold and increase the price of wool over time is going to be an interesting point of stasis for things to occur. Many games of the past have suffered from excessive inflation that has outpaced the growth of the player base and economy. Cycle outline here, another means to build a healthy economy. So they know that there need to be sinks in games. Money has to come out. You can't just sell things and constantly up the price because it will lead to massive inflation and nothing is worth anything in the end. I'm glad that the team has been extremely thoughtful as opposed to this. And then the peak gameplay, this is on the mountain for the wolves. Sheep can compete too, but like obviously they're going to get murked. A massively multiplayer competition for wool. This will not happen all the time. Don't know if it's going to be once a day, once a month, once a week, once a quarter. From community rewards, so I assume it's going to be at least once a month at the most, will intermittently take place on the peak. More details will be released in advance of the first game. So like just one of the game theory things that came into my mind with this was the best time to try and go breed is as soon as something like this gets announced. The first peak gameplay, when the wolves are all going to run to the peak, they're not going to be in the valley. There's going to be less wolves running around to steal your babies. So if you wanted to breed, that's when you should probably breed wool, and a sheep or wolf will be required to participate in the games. Now, here's the little things that I was talking about. The appendix. This is extremely important because it tells you, instead of just the words from above that can be confusing, they kind of break it down pretty simply. Hourly production rate: grass 3,500, wood 4,000, stone pretty rare, and water extremely rare. So like you're going to get more grass and wood, which you would then have to trade with the shopkeep to get more stone and water, unless you're on a place that stuff is abundant in the community where you are. I said there will be leveling up of these resources, which is graphed below here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Everything starts at level 1, so it's a 1-to-1. You get a 10% boost if you boost it up to level 2, 25% boost if you go further to level 3, and a 45% boost on the resources that you have on that land if you go to level 4. To upgrade grass, it's going to take you this many resources to level 2, level 3, level 4. As you can see, it's extremely costly to get these lands boosted up to get the maximum. Same thing goes for wood. Same thing goes for stone. Same thing goes for water. Because grass is so abundant, as you can see here, 3,500, 4,000 for wood, it takes more of them to use for upgrading costs. Same goes for defensive upgrades. We spoke about that. I don't know if this is community or individual lands. I'm waiting for clarity on that. We will find out as the game starts. Sabotaging costs and effects. This is a wolf thing. An alpha 5 will cost 15 energy. And will affect 140. If they use an aggressive sabotage, I want to know what the difference is between light sabotage and aggressive sabotage, because why would I not spend 15 for the aggressive sabotage if it massively kills the energy cost? There must be a cooldown attached to this. 6s, they do more damage. 7s, which are pretty abundant, do a lot. The alpha 8s, the strongest wolves, they have a big time boost on the amount that they can sabotage something to steal more. They are the best stealers, but as I mentioned before, there is only 14 of them that will be roaming around the valley. Defense multipliers: if you have defense level 1, 5% boost for level 2, 10%, 15% for level 4. Weather effects: this is what I was saying. Collecting claim multiplier: sunny days, 20% boost, and you will play Sheep Dilemma game if you get looted from. Cloudy is 1-to-1, and you play Gambit game. Rainy, you collect less, 80%. And you play Gambit game as well. Farmer cooldowns. This is going to be massive. The cooldown is 30 days for each farmer action. Here are the actions that they can do. They can give immunity from looting for 20 days when enacted. Then after that 20 days, that farmer's got to chill out for 30 days. Multiplier on resource rate. The big daddies and big mamas, they are the least of them. They are the most powerful. 100 years is the second most rare. Also pretty powerful. Above average Jane gives you a little bit less, as you can see, right? So like the power of these multiplies. The average Joes, which are the base farmer, they give you immunity for 8 days versus 20 days for a big daddy or a big mama. And it goes basically from top to bottom. Same thing with the stealing. If they're used for that during breeding, you have immunity from stealing for 3 days. So if a wolf breaks in while that 40-day process is going, when you have a big daddy applied, you get 3 days full of immunity from stealing, and it increases the energy. It also, the taxation, it will be a big boost. Any farmer, average Joe's, the lowest farmer, will multiply your tax collection rate by 4x, 5x for a diesel, all the way up to 10x if you have one of the bigs. Sheep maximum energy. Spoke about this earlier. 1,000 energy for a Gen 0 sheep. 800 energy for a 1, and 25% less, down to 2. The Gen 2s get to 750. Wolf energy, 2,000. They can run. They can get out there and go. The Gen 1s drop to 16, and it's a massive drop off here, going from, it's a 40% drop off essentially, going from 2,000 down to 1,200. 60% of the total energy for the Gen 2s versus the Gen 0s. So if I was to breed those two A8s, those two A7s that I have, I'd produce a new Gen 2 A7, but he would only have 1,200 energy versus the 2,000 energy from my Gen 0 A7. Massive drop off. I think that that's balanced. So if you wanted to get the next Gen 2, it's not going to be able to do as much damage or the big actions like the Gen 0s can. Energy to move between communities costs you 15 to go from like community 2 to community 3, community 44 to community 45 if you wanted to jump on the board. Sheep breeding costs. When you're in a community, it costs you nothing. So you can move around as much as you want within the community where your sheep or wolves are placed. But to move to a different community is going to cost you some energy. Breeding costs. 275 energy, so you can't go in there with a sleepy sheepy. 2,000 grass. The wool, the price to breed is going to be determined by that person. That's going to be determined by who has that structured land. I have 7 of them. I plan to build my structures and try to upgrade them as best as possible to make them as attractive to potential sheep breeders, or I don't have a peak land, so I can't have wolf breeding for a den. But I'm going to try and make it as attractive as possible by leveling up my structures to try and get me to a point where I can demand a better price based on what I see out there at other structures. For me to get to a level 2, 3, 4 as quickly as possible is something that I believe is important. You can make your own game theory decisions as possible for you, but I think people are going to be very attracted to spending 27 days in a barn as opposed to 40 days in a barn with more protection, costing more energy for sheep to steal or get stolen from wolves. Collecting costs, one-time energy fee of 10, daily energy fee of 2. Wolf breeding costs, 1,000 meat, each has to have 750 energy, and the wool is going to be determined by the barn owner. You want to breed 2 wolves together, you're going to have to pay. Considering that if you have an A6 that you think you're going to get out of it, the floor on A6s right now, if I was to look over at, where did I put it? Right here. This is a great site, Wolfgame Live, Scarly's site. He constantly has all the different floors posted if you wanted to go check that out. Right now, the cheapest 7 is 31 Ethereum. That's a Gen 0. The Gen 1s are 23. The Gen 1 6s are 11.9. And wool, right now, to get 100,000 wool would cost you 3 Ethereum. So if you paid 100,000 wool to breed 2 Gen 6s together, a Gen 2 might cost, what, 5 or 8? You're making a massive profit on that month. So your things are yielding you money. So the price to breed is going to be determined by the barn owner, and it's not going to be cheap, which is going to be a limiter. Like I said, I don't think we're going to see massive asset inflation, though we will see some, specifically early when it costs 40 days of your life to breed possibly another one. Wolf looting costs, going to cost some energy and cooldown. Not a lot of wool. Wolf stealing costs, energy and cooldown. No wool to do that. Stealing. Time to be kicked by a higher alpha wolf, 7 days. You gotta win that battle, and you gotta sit in there for 7 days without getting booted from the barn. So you gotta take your piece off the board as well. It's gonna leave people with less pieces to be made. Barn stats and build costs. This is to upgrade them. It costs wool to upgrade, and you can see it only costs 2,000. And wool right now is like 4.5 cents. So it doesn't really cost all that much. So like there are wool sinks in the game. There's taxes. There's money to build and upgrade your structures, but it's not all that much. So like having it be 50,000 or 100,000 to do these things, these actions, wool's not going to be burned as quickly, which is a good thing. Wool will be burned consistently, but it's going to be a slow march like season 1 of Westworld. Not everything is just going to be eliminated from the game and we're left with nothing. There is long-term playability and longevity in this game based on the amounts that they have decided to use to build an upgraded den. 7,000, because wolves there's less dens. There's just not that many structures available on the peak. And so it's going to cost you a lot of the resources, a lot more of the resources, as you can see, to build those dens versus these barns. The bathhouses, same thing, very expensive in stone, still only 2,000 to build, 20,000 to build a bathhouse to get the wolves recharged, but they're going to be worth it because you can you can charge whatever you want to make them use to chill out in your jacuzzi hot tub up on the snowy mountain. The dilemma game. This is the difficult stuff. Share, greed. All these different numbers, we're going to find out exactly kind of where we can get to. So the prisoner's dilemma game with the payoff matrix, and these aren't the same. So this is an A5, but this is an A6. So like this would be, the A5 wouldn't have a crown on it. But if they choose to share, it's 60-40. If they choose greed, the wolf gets 90%, right? Share is this. Share, greed is this. Greed is this. They both get less if they choose greed. So if you have 2 people that are very cool, you can walk away with 60-40 mix and everybody keeps a lot of things, but the wolves can get very greedy. If the sheep chooses share, they can get very greedy and take 90-10. But if the wolves have to be careful, because if they choose greed thinking that the sheep are going to choose share, sheep can just F the wolves and say, look, you're not getting 90%. We're going to burn 50% of these assets I've collected. You're only walking away with 35. So there is some sort of dilemma here, an incentivization for people to click that share button and walk away with more but the wolves can always just hold this power over the sheep. But you will have this black book for everybody, as it said, to know what their possibilities are going to be. The Delta Wolves, the A6s, same sort of thing. 7s, massive advantage there. And if the this should say A8, but it says A7. Shep's going to have to correct that. If they choose greed, they are guaranteed 50%. If the A7s choose greed, they are guaranteed 45%. If they click share, the wolves are guaranteed 70%. If they choose share and the sheep chooses greed, 65 or 35%. So like the higher up your wolf gets, the more incentivized you are to choose greed. Because you can walk away with 45 if you do that, but you get 70 if you both share. The only way the sheep benefit is if it's a double share in that game. Share doing the Bust of Wolf's Gambit game, alpha scores, they get these multipliers. Collecting time multiplier, this is very mathy, but it's worth it. If you guys wanted to go check out a couple of other tools, I showed you the live site. Make sure that you go check out wolfgame.tools. It's a great site to check out the market, to look at all the different things. This is my personal collection as of right now and what it's valued at. As you can see, I am heavily invested in this game. You can search for the pouches. This is a great way to go buy pouches if you wanted to do that. Let's see, market, pouches, and then you can look at what the price is per pouch, how much locked wool there still is, and you can sort by discount to liquid. So if you were to buy this pouch right here for 4 Ethereum, you would get this much locked wool, and it comes at a 60%, 59.5% discount to what is out there. So I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for watching. Welcome to the game. It's going to be a lot of fun. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.